All right. I just want to welcome everybody to episode 3 of the Northeast Bass Fishing Podcast, presented by Thayer's Marine. I'm Chris Adams. I'm joined by my co-host Tommy Waltz, and we've got a couple of real good guests tonight. We started off the podcast with Joe Lucarelli from New Hampshire. We went out to the Finger Lakes region and connected with Casey Smith, and now we've got two great guys, one from Connecticut, one from New Hampshire, that are names in the fishing industry in our region. We've got Joe Burchill from Southern New Hampshire, fresh off a couple real good finishes on Lake Winnipesaukee and a couple springtime opens. And we've got Chris Bielert from Connecticut. He's the Northeast Regional Sales Manager with Shimano Fishing. So welcome to the podcast, guys.
Thanks for having us, guys.
Thanks for having us.
So I guess we'll just kick it off with just a recap. We wanted to bring Joe on. Joe had, I think he won the New Hampshire Bass Nation Spring Open on Winnipesaukee, and then last weekend had a top 5. I think you were 4th in the Reynolds Boats Open on Winnipesaukee as well. Can you just kind of tell us a little bit about those events, how they set up, what the water temp was, and kind of what you guys did to get the win?
Yeah, definitely. So there was one other event, actually, New Hampshire TBF. That was the first of the 3. So
okay.
back-to-back weeks. Really the tournaments that everyone looks forward to in the spring on Winnie, right? So we've all seen how the largemouth have started showing up, I guess now in the last decade. People say they're coming on stronger, lake's going through a cycle. So those are the events people want to fish. You have a chance at a 5 to 9 pounder, and people might say a 9 pounder sounds crazy, but I heard just this past weekend in practice someone caught an 8-12.
Wow.
Weighted, picture, everything. So it's a fun time to fish. A little bit about myself. I've kind of made the decision in the last 5 or 7 years that I want to focus on the lakes region. We have a lot of good tournaments between Squam Lake, Newfound Lake, Winnisquam, and Winnie. And then obviously get up to Champlain when I can. So with that said, a lot of, trials and tribulations over the last 7 years or so on Winnie, trying to figure those fish out. And this year was just fortunate enough to kind of get on a little roll, dial something in, and compete in all 3 of those tournaments. We got 3rd in the first one, super tight weights, just like Reynolds. But yeah, happy to get into the details, save a little bit of juice.
Yeah, we're just to back up a bit. All those tournaments. Did you say one of them was a 4 fish? I think one might have been 5 or 6. And did you have all largemouth, or did you have mixed bags at all?
So New Hampshire's a little bit different. So in the spring, it's a 4 fish limit. In the summer, it moves anywhere from 5 to 8 fish, but these were all 4 fish limits. So the tournament you mentioned that we won, that was 4 fish for almost 21 pounds. We also culled, a good 3.5, 3.75. So best day I've ever had on Winnie by far. Probably had close to 25 if my math's right. That tournament, we weighed in 4 largemouth. First tournament was a mixed bag, 2 largemouth, 2 smallmouth. And this last tournament was all largemouth as well. But we fished for smallmouth, each day as well.
Well, you said the largemouth coming on strong. That's kind of been the deal, though, the last few years. If you're not targeting largemouth, you're kind of not fishing for first place. Would that be a true statement, or?
Yeah, definitely. I would say the weights have averaged, and remember 4 fish, they've averaged on a tough day 4 for 15, all the way up to, I think 22 is the highest I've heard of at Winnie. And our smallmouth, it's a little different than Champlain and Thousand Islands. Our smallmouth, a good tournament fish, typically is, a 2.5 to a 4. If you're catching a 4 pounder on Winnie, you're really doing something. I mean, unless you're Joe Lucarelli, that doesn't, happen to most people. It's not a common occurrence. And Joe, actually, in the tournament we won, he weighed in a good bag. I think they had 16 something, and he had 3 4-pounders in his bag, 3 4-pound smallmouth, which was impressive.
Yeah, Joe mentioned to us a couple weeks ago, he thought the smallmouth bite had been better, and he attributed to maybe less pressure from last year, not many tournaments, not as many anglers due to COVID. Did you both of you guys kind of see a different lake this year when you were out there, or anything to add to that?
I think you could definitely tell that the lake didn't get as much pressure last year. I caught fish in areas that I haven't caught fish before. It just seemed like the bite overall was a bit better. As far as the smallmouth go, I think the comment Joe made about them weighing like a half pound heavier definitely showed up in the tournament. I mean, there was even a 5.85 weighed in, which is unheard of for smallmouth there. So yeah, I think the fishery got a little less pressure last year, and I wouldn't say it showed out. The largemouth, we had that big bag, but I don't think anyone in any of the 3 tournaments weighed a 7. And typically you're going to see a heavy 6 or a 7+ in every tournament.
Joe, just a question about kind of that largemouth strategy. Obviously I know for a number of years it's been the ticket, as Tommy said, but is that a deal where, like, are you catching enough of them, like numbers wise, where it's a pretty sure bet, or are you kind of walking on the line of being a hero or a zero? You're obviously catching some big ones, but could it also go the other way pretty, could it go south fast too?
Yeah, it depends on the day. I'd say most times we're walking a fine line between absolutely bombing and having a great day. And the win was a perfect example of that. I think we caught 7 keepers, and 4 of them were the right ones. And a big part of that too is, timing's everything on Winnie. The more you fish it, the more you realize that. That's why in the summertime, for me, it's a tough lake with all the boat traffic to run around and be able to hit what you want. In the spring, you have a little bit more flexibility without the boat traffic, as long as it's not blowing 30 miles an hour, where you can jump around. And this year, well, every year for the most part, I'll target largies, and it's typically 5 to 10 bites. Unless the stars align and you have a perfect weather day and you get on something, you can still have a numbers day. But far and away, it's, going for the right ones, and getting a big one early is important too. I caught the tournament we won, I caught a 5.9 on my 3rd cast of the day, and in a 4-fish limit. That really settles you in and allows you to make some decisions that you probably wouldn't make if you, didn't pop a big one early.
Yeah, for sure. Now the Reynolds tournament, now you and Chris, you fished it as well, right?
Yeah, I did fish it. I actually fished the Reynolds Trail with my dad. My dad's 84 years old this year, and we're still
Awesome.
team tournament fishing together. So
Yeah, I saw that. Now you guys are doing pretty good in the points, right? You fish Candlewood too, and
yeah, we did okay at Candlewood, and Winnie not so much. Winnie, we ended up, I think, 20th. We were in the top. I think we finished 6th or 7th at Candlewood. So
okay.
we did okay there, and went on to Winnie. And I will say this to echo, kind of what Joe was saying earlier. If you don't go chase those largemouths right away and can't get one, then you kind of end up like we did in that tournament. And it's basically catching, people laugh when you tell them you caught 100 bass in a day, but it is not difficult to go to Winnie and catch 100 smallmouth. It's not. The first stop that we went to, I never even made a cast because my dad caught one on every single cast. And I was literally just sitting there with the scale, culling fish as he kept catching them. And because they're all the same, they're all 1.75 pounds to 2 pounds.
Yep.
And then you move on to the next spot after you catch 25 of the same size fish and go, well, maybe we'll find some better ones here. And in my experience, the schools at Winnie, you can definitely move from one location to another, to a different location, and find a larger class of fish. And we ended up finding some 2.5 and 2 3/4 and culling a whole bunch more out. And we had a blast. I mean, we caught shy of 11 pounds and ended up 20th. But like we were talking earlier, it's one of those strange places, Winnie. We caught all our fish actually catching them on the sand.
Yeah.
25 to 30 feet in sand, bottom, nothing on it.
Nothing.
the opposite of where you think those fish would be.
Yeah. Now I remember, this is going back a few years, but I fished one of the spring opens, one of the Northern Bass ones. And that tournament, I want to say it was maybe 2010, 11, 12ish. That was strictly a smallmouth open. I remember it was miserable weather, like brutally cold, windy, and my partner and I think we only had, right around there 11 pounds, and it was a really good bag that day. So when did it kind of change to, I think that was only smallmouth allowed. Did the state law change, or what is it? Was that an earlier tournament, or what's the deal there?
That was a special event that Northern Bass used to put on.
Okay.
It was before my time. They called it the Smallmouth Open.
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
think it had anything to do with regulations, just kind of a special event where, it's springtime and have everyone targeting smallmouth. And Joe Lucarelli would be a better person to ask about, the why behind that. But I was having the same conversation with my good buddy Chad Bishop the other day, and a few other guys for that matter, about, when this shift towards greenfish on that lake happened. And he had an interesting insight, that they may have always been there, and maybe guys just weren't targeting them as much. And then they started showing up in these tournaments more, and more people started targeting them. The only other thing I can think of is a change in the forage. I know there's been like a rock bass explosion on Winnie. It'll drive you nuts fishing docks and stuff like that. And I don't know if largemouth eat rock bass, but the size those fish are growing to leads me to believe that might be the case. And then you obviously have white perch and a lot of bait. So
yeah, it's interesting. I go these old memories and stories, but I remember a bass Eastern Divisional. I'm sure Chris was there. I was probably 17, 18 years old. I fishing as a co-angler, and I'm not going to say the guy's name or what he was doing, but I learned a lot that day. And he was catching largemouth shallow, and that was September. Usually those divisionals were in September, and I saw enough that day. I mean, big ones that you knew they lived there. I just always wondered why that spring one was always the smallmouth open. So
I'll date myself here a little bit. To go along with what you just said, Chris, one of the first divisionals that I fished up on Winnie was actually 1998.
Ike and Ellie was at that one, right?
Correct. Ike and Ellie was fishing for New Jersey that year.
His vest on with the patches and the glass.
Absolutely. I still got some of those old vests with all those patches on them, just for memories, just to keep them. I should have hung one up here and showed you guys. It would have been great to have on the podcast. But even back then in 1998, I can remember guys, running up towards Lee's Mills and fishing all that grass and come in with limits of largemouth back then. I just think that those fish weren't as big back then. Maybe you could catch 12, 14 pounds, which in 98, man, that was a load, right? Because you could catch 7, 8, 9 pounds and then, win your state and go on to the nationals catching 7, 8, 9 pounds a day of smallmouth. I just think those fish have grown to the point where, man, oh man, you go into those backwaters and look at, 6 or 7 or an 8, because you can see them all. It kind of changes your mentality a little bit nowadays.
Yeah, and Joe made a good point on the first podcast you guys had when you were talking about Winnie. It's not a lake you can really compare to like Champlain in terms of the fish population. We just don't have the numbers. So I know I'm talking about the lake like it's Gunnersville with these giant largemouth, but there just aren't that many, and they get moved around. Thankfully, tournaments are going out of different, sections all the time, so they're not all going to one area. But the largemouth areas are limited. Everyone knows where they live. You're constantly fishing around people, so you kind of have to find little intricacies and just, make small adjustments that other people, aren't, or getting the right rotation to really compete. And I think that's what throws a lot of guys off, where they pull into an area, they might see other boats and get discouraged, but you can typically move around and chase a bite.
So when you were talking earlier, both of you guys kind of mentioned you got to get on that largemouth bite early. Is that a feeding thing, or do you think it's also has something to do with pressure and those fish kind of getting skittish? Just because I can remember a couple years ago, I fished one of those spring tournaments with a buddy, and we had a pocket that we pulled into, and first pass down right off, we caught a 5-pounder. We probably got, 5 or 6 keepers on our first pass. It was only like a 50-yard stretch, and we saw them swimming everywhere. So we're like, oh my God, we're gonna crush them today. And then we worked it nice and slow, went for our next pass. We maybe caught 1 keeper. We didn't get another bite out of it the rest of the day, and we could see him swimming. So do you think it's because Champlain, the fish just aren't as skittish? I mean, Winnipesaukee, especially some of those largest saw in beds, you go near them, they were gone. Do you think that morning bite has something to do with pressure in the spring tournaments, or is it simply a feeding thing?
Chris, do you want to take that one, or?
At least I can tell you in my experience, I certainly think that the pressure gets to them. If you go into one of the backwaters and whether it's Fish Cove or Salmon Meadow or wherever you want to, whichever one you want to pick, like Joe said, you kind of get in line and you've got to find little nuances or little intricacies within that backwater to try and pick off a fish here or there. If you're the first boat and those fish are fresh, then you're going to catch them. I mean, you can tell right away. You'll see some swimming and they'll stop, or they'll just keep right on going. I've never been able to catch one of those fish that keep on going. But if you see a 5 and it stops on a rock, then right away, I'm going to catch that fish, right away. And if that fish sees 4 boats, 5 boats, 6 boats, 7 boats, a dozen boats come by him, that's going to just pressure that fish right out of anybody catching it. In my experience, maybe Joe, you may be a little bit better to catch those tricky largemouths up there, but I've struggled. If I'm there first, I can definitely catch one. But after a few boats have been by it, it's tough.
Yeah, I don't have any secrets for catching them once I see them. I'll definitely echo what you said. Typically, if I can see them, it's too late and I'm moving on. My team tournament partner that I fish with a lot, Dan Tavilla, he's different, much better eyesight than me. Always, buddies give me a hard time that I'm blind. He'll pick some off, casting ahead of him and stuff like that. He's got a couple little tricks. But as far as the morning bite goes for me, it's really wind and water clarity dependent. So Winnie's got, for the most part, super clear water. So you're talking about larger than average fish that have been around a while and they're, not so easy to trick. So I either want wind or I want cloud cover or I want shade. So in the morning, I can kind of check off a lot of those boxes and you can get on them quick. But I've also had it happen where you don't get a bite for the first, 6 hours and you're kicking yourself saying, well, I could have caught 12 pounds of smallies in 30 minutes. And you're left at the end of the day with a couple good largemouth and nothing to go with it.
Yeah. Now the Reynolds tournament, like in the top group there, were any of those bags all smallmouth or mixed bags, or was it primarily largemouths that dominated?
I think Rich Baker had 14 and change all smallmouth.
Okay.
And I think that might have put him 5th. 6th, somewhere around there, but I think that was the biggest bag of smallmouth. I don't know. Other than that, I think everything else was either mixed or had at least half largemouth, I believe, in the higher bags.
Yeah, I got you.
And now the Bass Nation event that you won, Joe, I think I saw someone brought in like a 5'8" one for smallmouth, though, right?
Yeah, the thing was a giant.
Yeah, it's a monster.
Biggest fish I've seen by far there. And those big smallies, at least in my experience, they're kind of like rogues and act like largies. Like I catch my biggest smallies there when I'm largie fishing. When I'm on perch schools, like I said, it's 2.5 to I'm jumping up and down if I get a 3.5.
Yeah, crazy. So Joe, what do you got the rest of the year for tournaments coming up? What's on your schedule?
Well, I'm fishing the New Hampshire Bass Nation and New Hampshire TBF trails. Both the presidents of those organizations, Killian Kilroy and John Foster, have done a really good job with, upping our participation numbers. We're drawing at, over 40 boats in every tournament. The payouts are good. good team of the year money. So 4 events each there. And then I'm going to Erie in June for the Bass Nation Eastern Regional. That should be a good one. Although in the first tournament on Winnie this spring, I blew my power head. So I'm kind of without a boat, and Erie's not the type of lake people are lining up to lend you a boat, but just had someone, not with my track record at least, but I had a buddy, reach out and offer me his boat. So I should be good to go for that. And then I'll try to sneak in an ABA up on Champlain and maybe a Greenbush, open or cash and stuff like that.
You may not even, you guys are going to go out of Presque Isle, so you may not even need to leave the bay.
Yeah.
June up there, buddy.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm going to spend a day of practice just in the bay because I feel like the current climate and tournament fishing is they don't want to take unnecessary risks. And if it's blowing, I don't see them sending, 200 boats out in 4 to 6 footers. I think that people used to go out and fish in whatever. I can remember hearing reports of the Champlain Bass Series and tournaments on Champlain with, those guys going out in crazy waves that most guys wouldn't even consider. And it's just changing.
As you watch me flex my back and neck because it's ruined for life.
Yeah, you don't get enough credit, Chris. You used to, go out and compete in an 18-foot Ranger.
I did. I ran an 18-foot. I had a 1610, a 1992 1610 Ranger that my dad actually gave to me and got me started, and then ran that forever. I think I had 18 gallons of gas in that boat, and then I had an 18-footer with I think that boat had like 27, 30 gallons of gas. I remember one time I ran from, it was an ABA, I ran from Plattsburgh to Benson landing area. Had to go like 35 miles an hour the whole way to be able to have enough fuel to get down there. Did okay. And then halfway back up, I stopped on a spot and kind of lowered the boat. I ended up winning that day, but I literally went 35 miles an hour down and back to be able to have enough gas in that 18-footer. So yeah, I've been just kind of stepped up a couple years ago to a real boat, but yeah.
That's wild. I guess it's a Champlain thing. I mean, LaBelle, I remember going through the photo galleries of him back in the day and his smaller boat. And, you guys have went on to dominate and be competitive in those big tournaments. So
it's kind of like a rite of passage, right? Because you almost have to do it that way. Yeah. I remember the first red man tournament I ever fished on Thousand Islands, and in an 18-footer with no hydraulic steering. And trying to drive that boat in 6-footers in Lake Ontario. Oh, I mean, do the math. You get through Cape Vincent and you stop between Fox and Grenadier to take a rest because your arms are killing you. You can't even hold a fishing rod from driving the boat. And it's just technology and what it's done for us. I mean, the boats that we have now, hydraulic steering, 4-stroke outboards, where would we be without them?
Yeah, the technology is amazing. I mean, I come from a similar background where I started fishing in a Coleman crawdad, small little plastic John boat, and got into tournament fishing in Mass, fishing out of, crawdads. And my first bass boat I bought in Alabama, test drove it on the Alabama River when I lived in Birmingham, and it's a 15-foot 9 Stratos. And I towed that back when I moved home, and quickly realized that wasn't going to cut it in, the Lakes region in Champlain. So upgraded since then, but it's been a fun ride.
Yeah, well, and we're gonna chat a little bit more here with you, Joe. But just if we don't get a chance, good luck with all those tournaments you got on your schedule this year, and thanks for your input on Winnipesaukee, and great job over there. Like I said, we noticed the win, and Tommy and I were talking about getting you on, and then obviously you had another great tournament in the Reynolds. So good job there, and good luck. And we're just going to switch gears just a little bit. You were talking about the advancements in technology and fishing and kind of how it's changed the game. And obviously one of the leaders in that in the industry in terms of that has been Shimano fishing with, their rods and reels and everything. And we're lucky to have Chris Bielert here again from Shimano. So Chris, just let us know what's going on there. I know we talked a little bit earlier about what you're your day-to-day looks like in this crazy world and crazy time that we're living in. But just kind of give us an update on what's going on at Shimano, your products, and you know, and all that.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. You know, Shimano is 100 years old this year, and it's been pretty low key for us being 100 years with all the global pandemic stuff going on. Hasn't been really much time to celebrate. So we've kind of postponed that a little bit. Hopefully we're going to have a big 100-year celebration at some point in the future. I would love to go to Japan to be able to celebrate there, which was the plan all along, but not with the current climate. So the past year and a half for us has been challenging, not just for us, but for everybody in the fishing industry. You know, fishing participation is up about 37% nationwide. It's the largest increase to fishing license sales that the U.S. has ever seen. We all know why, right? With all the complicating factors going on with people's, you know, jobs and having free time and being at home and all those things. Basically, what that has done for a company like Shimano is put unprecedented demand on our products to the point where no matter how much we increase our production, capacity-wise, continue to get shipments of product, no matter how much we can produce, it basically comes in and goes right back out the door because the demand from the consumer level is just continues to kind of steamroll along. Shimano's kind of unique as a manufacturer, a true manufacturer, one of the only ones left in the fishing industry where every reel that we build is built in one of our own factories. We do not outsource our products to other private factories to build our reels. Our reels are built in two places, in Japan and Malaysia, and those are both Shimano-owned factories. Similar scenario with the rods, where just capacity, right? Being able to build more, it's been difficult. It's great to be in a position of such high demand where your products are in you know, everybody wants them. But it's also challenging to be able to make those people happy and get them the product that they want, which continues to be a challenge.
Yeah. What's you know, obviously the demand is huge, and obviously a big driver of that has been COVID and whatnot. But specifically within bass fishing and tournament bass fishing, kind of our little niche, what are some of the higher demand items that guys are looking for that you guys are building right now?
So the two biggest are Corrado, whether it's Corrado K or Corrado DC. They are definitely one of the highest demand products we have. And on the spinning side, it would be Stratic or Vanford. And Vanford, for the guys that don't know what Vanford is the new Stratic CI4. It's basically just a name change, but it's the next generation of Stratic CI4 is called Vanford. Those products continue to be just, you know, staples in the industry, whether it be on the bass fishing side, just like for us, or them crossing into saltwater and different categories. The Corrado that we have now, Corrado K, is arguably the greatest Corrado we've ever built. It's got great lineage. We've all fished Corrado Bs, the old green Corrados. We've all had those back in the day. And this new iteration just kind of raises the bar quite a bit. And then the DC technology that we have, our proprietary DC technology, it's not just for beginners. A lot of guys think that I don't need to, use DC technology. It's for guys that don't know how to use a bait caster, but any seasoned bait cast user, this will make you better. Technology is just one of those things where it ups the ante, so to speak. And the spinning side, like with Stratic, we've got Stratic FK right now, and Stratic, it's so, the way that our spinning reels work is everybody knows that our Stella is our flagship. It's our top of the line. And eventually we trickle down all the technologies from Stella down to lower tiered reels. And the current Stratic has more features that are Stella-esque, if you will, that for the price point, it's just as good as it gets. And you guys all fish them, I'm sure, or you know someone that does, and it's just a fantastic reel.
Yeah.
So Chris, those are some kind of higher end items. What would you say with your knowledge of Shimano, like what's your everyday angler, if he wants to go out and get an affordable spinning reel, do you have one that you'd recommend? Because I actually remember a few years back, a really good angler, I'm not gonna say his name, he had a boat loader of, I think they're the Saharas. And
there's even a reel. Yeah.
This
and
guy
at
won a
$80.
lot of tournaments on him, right?
Yeah. There's even a reel below that, Tommy, that Sedona, for example, at $70 is, I mean, there's so many tournament guys, you'd look at their boat and there's a dozen Sedonas on deck. And to go along with that, on the bait cast side, we have SLX, which is a $99 reel. I mean, if you put that reel in anybody's hand and told them it was $99, they'd call you a liar.
Right.
And the nice thing about Shimano and our technologies is because we do the manufacturing, we trickle down all of those technologies into lower price points. So our $99 reel is much more than a $99 reel, just based on that aspect of our business. So, but yeah, it's crazy that you can basically get a combo like SLX combo for $149, and every single one of us would be happy to use it in a tournament.
Yeah. That angler he was referring to was me. And I had a whole bunch of them for a while, and I've kind of phased out, and now I've got all the Stratic CI4s and whatnot. But the only those things were bulletproof. I beat the crap out of them. I remember La Victory at one point had a bunch of them on his deck, and the only time I ever had a problem was I think it was a 2017 Costa series, and it had been raining for a few days, and one of them kind of got a little bit sticky. Wasn't working too good, and I ran up to Marine Village, and Mr. Chris Bielert actually hooked me up with I think a rod and a reel, and that was before the top 10. So thanks to him for that. But yep.
So Chris, how long have you been with Shimano for?
Going on 9 years.
9 years.
Yeah, I actually was a Shimano Pro Staff guy for almost 10 years. Just to give you guys a little bit of history, I qualified to the Elite Series, the inaugural Elite Series season in 2006. I fished the Bassmaster Tour the year before that, which technically is the Elite Series. I qualified through the Opens, and back then I had to make a decision on whether I was going to be able to have enough funds to continue and fish the inaugural Elite season, which was back then 11 tournaments and 5,000 a tournament, and the first two back-to-back in California. And I just couldn't muster the cash. And that was difficult, right? But the silver lining is I ended up working in the industry. I actually worked for Lunker City Fishing Specialties for a handful of years. And through my pro staff position with Shimano, they eventually offered me a job position, and the rest is kind of history. So I think it's important in your podcast. I know this is a tournament fishing podcast, but I do want to make anyone out there aware that it doesn't always have to be about being a professional angler. There are fantastic careers within the fishing industry, and I'm proof positive of that. Whether it be on the sales and marketing side, whether it be on the engineering or product development side, there's always companies in the industry looking for good employees, and it creates amazing opportunities for people. I'm 9 years in at Shimano, and I've been promoted twice. So fantastic company, still family owned, and I'm proud to say that I work for Shimano.
Yeah.
Nice. But is it a problem working for Shimano, being a fisherman? You probably have a lot of fisherman buddies. how often are your buddies hitting you up for a Shimano? You know what I mean? Like
Everyone wants
that's
that
like
discount code.
that's like having a buddy that owns a beer company or something. You know, you're always going over to his house. Hey, can I have a beer? There must be like the nonstop request for something, right? Is that true?
You're not wrong at all.
Yeah.
I heard he's got quite a stash in his. I guess his basement's pretty impressive. I might have heard that from Jason Bacon or somebody. I can't remember.
So I'm a tackle junkie. I mean, it doesn't matter where I work. I mean, I have packages arrive here daily of things that I buy constantly because I'm just, if a new crankbait comes out or a new jerkbait comes out or whatever, I have to have it, right? I mean, that's just the guy that I am. And my collection keeps growing and growing and growing. And we all have got our vices, right? So fishing tackle, I guess, is mine.
Cool.
Just a quick aside for Joe and Tommy. I don't know if you guys would know, but if you look back, I first met Chris probably 03, 04-ish, somewhere around there. I think we were both doing the BFL circuit back in the day. And if you go back and look at the kind of the Angler of the Year standings from all that, it was Chris Bielert, it was Jamie Hartman, Tom LaVictory, Joe Zombeck, myself. Like there was a group of guys, some really good anglers. So and Chris was right in that mix, and obviously fished the Bassmaster Tour and then transitioned to Shimano. So a lot of good memories, good history, and you've made a great career out of it. So it's a win-win, right?
No doubt about it. We all want to be pro anglers, right? And no one, I'm at the top of that list. That was what I wanted to do. It's what I always said I was going to do, and I finally get to that level, and then you kind of get punched in the gut a little bit because you can catch fish, but you don't have the fun. So that takes a little wind out of your sails. But it is what it is. It's not for everybody, and I'm in a fantastic place. And I do want to make a comment, though, because talking about back in the day, your podcast with Joe Lucarelli, that spot at Champlain, I remember that tournament distinctly because I drove by those guys every day thinking, why are they fishing all on top of one another? And obviously we found out why. But I had a pretty good tournament. I think I'd finished just outside the top 10, fishing right around the corner at Crab Island, catching them, right there. So it was funny to see that picture. It brought back some good memories.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Chris, I'm a little embarrassed, Chris, that I didn't know your fishing history. I consider myself kind of a bass geek and listen to all the podcasts that are out there and try to stay up on the history and what's going on. And that's, when I saw Chris and Tommy starting this podcast, I immediately became a fan. I'm excited to see what you guys do with it because the Northeast and New England in general, I feel like there's, a special group of fishermen who really don't get the exposure they might deserve, because we don't have the, all the BFL trails and, our biggest tournaments are going to Champlain. You get a couple a year, but there's a lot of talent up here and a lot of cool stories. So great to hear.
Yeah, I mean, that was really the premise behind the podcast was we felt like there was quite a bit of national, coverage of national events and the kind of the national scene, and not anything, there's a couple others, but really specifically dedicated to the Northeast and events and anglers and stuff like that. So kind of a natural fit. For Chris here, I remember, I think I was at Bass National Championship in Dardanelle one year, and then obviously I helped you guys out with the Shimano Dealers event up in Plattsburgh one year. But you guys used to do that Shimano Experience Tour and take that everywhere. Is that still going on, or what's up with that?
Yeah, so for quite a few years, that's actually how I started at Shimano. I was a member of the Shimano Experience team, and we basically had multiple rigs that would travel the country doing events and visiting dealers and things like that. It is not in play any longer, but there has been talks of resurrecting it. Whether that happens once we get out of this COVID scenario, because our travel has been shut off basically for the past 365 days plus. We can now begin to travel again, which is huge for something like that. But it no longer exists in that format. the people that were doing that still work at Shimano, and they still go and do events different places. But just driving around the country from place to place to place, that no longer happens at the moment.
Yeah, I gotcha. I was always impressed by that, and the dealer event that I went up to that one year. It was just so impressive. I mean, you had all your major Northeast dealers there, and for Joe and Tommy, like they rolled the red carpet out for these guys and had all of the latest, the brand new products. They all sent them out with guides for the day and food and the whole nine, and lodging at Marine Village, and it was first class, and I was really impressed by that, and also by I think you had some R&D folks there as well at that event.
Yeah, one of the things that we do that's kind of unique as well is both, whether it's a dealer event like that or during product development, we build fishing products, right? So the only way that you can develop new gear is to put product in the right people's hands. And we continue to do that, whether it be field testing or market research or any of those things. We're constantly trying to improve upon what we have. And arguably that's our largest investment, is investing in developing new products. And it speaks for itself, right? Our products they stand all by themselves. They're fantastic from top to the bottom. And that's the reason why, because the dedication to developing products. So when we do have those great products, the best way to kind of show them to our dealers is to do an on the water event for them. So like we did at Marine Village, we brought in 25 dealers from all over the Northeast, basically from Maine to Virginia. They come stay at Marine Village. Obviously we cook, we have fun, but the main focus there is to get them on water with guys like Chris Adams and put a rod and reel in their hand. And that's the idea, is have someone who is the best at what they do. Now they've got the best products on their hand, and they can talk to the dealer about why that product matters to them. And it's all genuine, it's all fact, and it all fits together. So you have a great time, you go fishing, and you gain a whole bunch of knowledge. So now those dealers are armed with all of that information to go back, and now they can speak to the consumers about it. So that process is very important. It's fun, by the way, which doesn't suck either, but the whole process is basically to complete that cycle, if you will.
Yeah. I had
Real quick, Chris, I just want to vote for the experience event to come back. I used to go to Kittery Trading Post in Maine every spring.
Yep.
And get there super early in the morning, line around the building just to get our hands on the rep samples, whether it's, the NRX or the high-end reels. And that's what got me hooked on G. Loomis and, higher end Shimano stuff for sure.
Heard loud and clear, Joe.
Yeah, I remember back to that dealer event. I had the guys from Susquehanna Fishing Tackle out with me for the day, and it was a great day of fishing. But one of the I remember this. I think you gave the speech. We were in my cat's running around like crazy here. We were in one of the cabins, and you showed us the Zodius rod, and you talked about the I don't even know how to explain it. The blank, the roll and the blank, and like grabbing the end of it, not being able to roll it. Yep. And you sold me, and now like it's my favorite rod. I mean, for the bang for the buck, that Zodius rod is incredible. I mean, I got a whole lineup of them, and I love them. Talk a little bit about that. Can you explain that technology?
Piece of cake. So basically, Zodius is a technology called High Power X. So when you look at the rod, you can see an X-shaped pattern that runs up the blank. What that is, it's 1.5 inch wide carbon tape that we put over the blank after it's done with normal sheets of material. Now, what that does is it adds another layer of strength, but it reduces what you just mentioned, Chris, that blank twist. So if you grab the tip top of a rod with it facing you, you can turn that right and left if you grab the tip top. You can compare any rod that's built conventionally versus a High Power X rod, and the High Power X rod will twist less. Now, what that means for you is, number one, when you're going to make a cast, when you bring your rod back on the back cast, it wants to rotate based on whatever's tied on your line, right? That rod loads, but it never loads perfectly straight. So if it does, the less that rod will rotate, the better your forward cast is going to be, and the more accurate your cast will be, because it doesn't have to unload from that twist. Okay, so basically what it does is it makes you more accurate, plain and simple, in your casting motion. The second thing it does is, we've all had a fish where we had to turn them, right? So if you pull one direction and there's tension on the tip top, in the opposite direction, it's going to want to rotate that blank the same way. So having it resist that rotation is going to give you more control and give you more leverage to be able to pull on that fish. So those are just kind of applications, how that works. The other thing that it does is it reduces what's called ovalization. So when a rod bends, a rod is a tube, it's round, right? So as a rod bends, it wants to basically ovalize until the bottom side of that oval fractures and it folds in on itself. That's how you get a break. So what that High Power X does is it pushes back against that ovalization. So it gives you, number one, a faster responding blank, but it reduces that ovalization so that it makes the rod overall much stronger. And for example, I'll talk recovery rate a little bit. A lot of the tournament guys know what recovery rate means. When you make a cast, everybody knows that a rod feels like when it doesn't recover, it kind of wobbles and the tip bounces. Chris, from using Zodius, there's none of that, because the recovery rate is so crisp and quick. And that's from High Power X.
Yeah. I've known. We talk a lot about the casting. It's just amazing, the new technology compared to the old stuff, and you can certainly feel it in the casting. But one of the places where I noticed it most was, I think I might have been with Tommy, but we were Carolina rigging one day, and you get a ton of line out, and you get this big smallmouth on, and they're surging, and that's where I used to with previous rods, older rods, I would sometimes lose contact with the fish when they surge, or they go left, right, or up, down, whatever it is, and you're trying to keep up with them. And you kind of lose them sometimes. With that Zodius, it's amazing. I'd never lose contact. The hook stays good. I keep pressure the whole time. And I think a lot of it is due to that rod not rolling like a typical rod would. So I just remember that when you gave that demonstration, and kind of wondered about it for a bit. I was like, I don't know, is Chris just throwing another gimmick, or what's the deal here? But no, it's the real deal. And like I said, that I've got a whole lineup of those Zodius, and you can probably buy a more expensive rod, but bang for the buck, I love that rod. So,
and you won't find anybody argue that. For the price point, it is by far the best value. We build X Pride, which is above Zodius. It's got a higher grade of carbon. It's got a hybrid EVA and cork grip. It's got a little bit different reel seat. But for bang for the buck, like you said, it's pretty tough to beat a Zodius.
Yeah. Now, Joe, you were talking a little bit earlier about you're a big Shimano guy, right?
Yeah, been fishing Shimano reels really since I got into fishing. First bait caster was a gold Shimano. I don't know if it was a Bantam or what. And then I'm a big swim bait fisherman, and started out with the Cardiff and have moved all the way up to the Calcutta Conquest. So, Shimano's an interesting company to me, just in terms of the, pedigree. And you meet these Shimano buffs who hang on to reels that they've had for 15, 20 years, and they can still service them and keep them in the rotation. And I've, kind of moved from Chronarch D7s, which were my favorite reels, to Bantams now. And it just keeps getting better and better. It's like, just when you think they set the bar, they come out with something new that you have to have. It's amazing.
Yeah.
That's one of the greatest things, we're all tackle guys, right? And we all love technology. We have all got great, bass boats and outboards and trolling motors and electronics and all that. And sometimes in all that package, that boat package stuff and electronics, with that race that's going on, we forget about the technology of rods and reels and how far it's come. But Shimano is just that research and development, and that's so important for us. It's basically what drives us. We are a product driven company, period. And whether, a lot of people are familiar with our bicycle components that we build. We're the largest bicycle component manufacturer in the world. And we also build rowing components as well for sculls, collegiate and Olympic type sculls. And no matter what we build, it's considered to be the best of the best that's out there. And it's just because that's who we are. It's in our DNA, and that's not slowing down.
Yeah, I remember another takeaway from that dealer event, now that you say it, was that, and it's no discredit to any other manufacturers or anything like that, but I remember you saying how Shimano was so focused on the quality of the product and really maybe less focused on the show and the marketing and all that, and they let the product sell itself. And that really told a story, because you see some companies that kind of do it the other way, where it's all or I should say it's a little bit more flash and maybe less on the product end. So yeah,
it's definitely reversed for us. A lot of companies are marketing companies first, and we're the opposite. We're a product company, and sometimes marketing may not be a primary for us. It may come as a secondary piece because of the product. But our marketing team has grown and continues to increase their presence and their reach. And in a perfect world, we'd be firing on all cylinders in every department. COVID is kind of, we're a little behind the curve these past couple of years because of that. But fantastic product, great company, still family owned, like I mentioned earlier, and product driven.
Yeah. Now, Tommy, I know we talked a little bit earlier. I don't know if you want to do it, but we sometimes do a rapid fire question section on the podcast. And I think Tommy might have had a few questions for both of you guys. Is that accurate, or?
Yeah, let's do it. We got 2 Winnipesaukee guys on. Let's do a Winnipesaukee edition. 10 questions. Chris, you can answer first, and then Joe, you can follow up. You can lie if you want, if you don't want to tell the real answers to these questions, but you kind of gave some answers earlier, but we can get the exact numbers and details on them. Okay, question 1, how many years have you been fishing Winnipesaukee? I don't want to make you feel too old, Chris, but.
First year, 1994.
So, 27 years? Is that math right there?
Yeah.
27 years. Joe, can you beat that, Joe? How many years?
We should have spent more time interviewing Chris. He's got me beat by a mile. I started fishing Winnie in 2013 when I moved back north from down south.
All right, you got 1 jerk bait to bring in Winnipesaukee. What is it?
Jackal Re-Range 110 MR in threadfin shad.
That's some very good details there too. All right, Joe.
110 and GG perch. I'm still torn on the hooks though. I pulled off a 5-pounder on those stock hooks, so I might have to switch it up.
Yeah, me and Chris were talking about those hooks the other day. They stick them good, but then every once in a while you just bend 3 of them out. So
and then it gets in my head, and I find myself on Tackle Warehouse ordering G finesse trebles, and still need to put them on. I haven't changed them out yet.
All right, next question.
Champlain smallmouth have straightened those hooks out.
Oh yeah. Champlain and St. Lawrence, you probably got to upgrade there. Okay, so next question. You got to choose spinning rod or bait caster on Winnipesaukee. What are you going with?
Oh, bait caster for me.
Bait caster for sure. I went to pick up a Ned rig in the first tournament of the year, and I didn't have a spinning rod in the boat. So thankfully my buddy Bob Mazzoni had one, because we needed it to weigh in.
All right. Percent time you spend fishing smallmouth versus largemouth?
60-40 smallmouth for me, because in practice we really felt we could catch a 3-pound average, but we never ended up doing that. So 60-40 in favor of smallmouth.
Springtime, 100% largemouth. Rest of the year when I'm fishing with my buddy Dan, it's like pulling teeth to get him away from smallies. So.
Okay. Spring tournament. Would you rather go after pre-spawners, or would you rather have a good amount of bedfish that you can go after?
Definitely pre-spawn for me. I like to bed fish, but I would much rather fish for them.
Pre-spawn, absolutely. And I think we got blessed with some cold rain and cold temperatures to kind of extend the pre-spawn this spring.
Okay. Black blue fleck or green pumpkin? One or the other. What are you taking?
Green pumpkin.
Black blue fleck in the spring.
Oh, there we go. There it is. The secrets are coming out. All right. What's the biggest large you ever caught on Winnie?
Oh, me was just over 5 pounds, 5.2 or 5.4, my biggest.
7-1 the day before a Reynolds tournament.
Oh,
I've since then realized that I don't want to be winning practice, and I may practice with cutoff hooks now.
Yeah, wow.
That's a giant.
All right. Biggest smallie.
410, my biggest in Winnie.
I think 4.8 on a discontinued Lucky Craft BDS1.
Ooh.
Fishing for largies.
BDS1, BDS2, dynamite.
You're pulling into a cove, fishing a tournament in Winnipesaukee. Who's the last guy or last team you want to see in that cove?
Joe Burchill.
Chad Bishop or Joe Lucarelli. I remember a Northern Bass tournament on Squam where we got second with 16 something, and Joe and Steve Lucarelli had 4 for 20 plus, and I watched Steve Lucarelli catch a 7-pounder to win the tournament. So I've finished behind Joe plenty of times, so I don't want to see him in the same cove. But he's been chasing smallmouth, so all is well.
Nice. All right. Last question. How often do you go over 45 miles per hour in Winnipesaukee? Tell the truth.
So my team partner is my 84-year-old dad. Remember,
Easy out.
especially if it's blowing.
Well, I blew my power head in that last tournament and could only run 47. So
Okay.
lead the.
I just thought it was interesting. I remember one time I fished there and the 45-mile-an-hour speed limit, and I was one of the first boats out, and I was going 45, and about 15 boats went by me, and I was like, "It's 45 or is it 50?"
I'm used to it.
If you get a ticket, you're DQ'd. So it's
Yeah,
sweet.
and I'm used to it because Candlewood is 45.
Right. That's right.
So I'm pretty much used to going 45. Both the Connecticut River and Candlewood, we've got speed limits as well. So you kind of get used to it.
All right. That's the 10 questions, man. Good job, guys.
Yeah. Try and do the 10 rapid fire questions every episode. And then Tommy did a nice job of doing a joint edition here. So yeah, we got probably 7 or 8 minutes left before we wrap things up. Chris, what do you got on your schedule, kind of the rest of the summer fishing and or Shimano stuff?
Yeah, it's busy. May is actually a little bit quiet, which is a good thing, but we've got a few tournaments coming up. We've got a Reynolds on the Connecticut River, and then I'm still undecided whether I'm going to jump into a few of these Toyota series or not. Obviously that one on Champlain, everybody kind of wants to be in on that one. But we'll see if that shakes out. And then I actually do a ton of saltwater fishing because of my career at Shimano. I'm fortunate to do a lot of saltwater fishing, and that'll start ramping up here. We've got our national sales meeting in June. We'll spend a week on Cape Cod and get to do some really good fluke fishing at Nantucket Shoals. And then, we'll get into July and have ICAST, and man, that seems like a little ways away, but it's going to come pretty darn quick. So it'll be a busy summer for sure.
So you mean between the summer and ICAST and kind of new products coming and then getting inventory in the dealers in the winter, like you have no downtime at all, do you? Like what's your slow time?
Our downtime, yeah, our slow time used to be in the fall, but
Okay.
the way that we plan our business out, we do it a little bit different. So we truly partner with our dealers to structure their business out so that they have product when they need it. And that planning process starts in the fall. So usually September, October, it'll roll into November, and then we come into the holiday time. So we get all of our dealers, most of their their year's business planned. We get orders in the system and get it booked. That's constantly evolving and adjusting, but it gives us a good baseline to work off of. So we do a lot of that planning in the fall. That used to be our slow time, but not so much anymore. And October is the best bluefin tuna topwater bite. So try and spend as much time doing that in October as well.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I don't know, Tommy, if you have anything else for these guys. If not, we'll wrap things up here. And again, I just want to thank Joe Burchill from New Hampshire. He's kind of on the rise over there. Been doing really well in the federation stuff the last few years, and obviously off to a hot start with a couple really good finishes on Lake Winnipesaukee. And also thanks to Chris Bielert, the Northeast Regional Sales Manager with Shimano Fishing. So thanks a lot, guys. It was a lot of fun, and hope everybody tunes in. I don't know if we'll do one next week or the week after, but we'll have a fourth episode coming soon. And just good luck to everybody on the water. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, you guys. Keep up the good work.